hereby call the February 4th, 2019 Alexander County Commissioners meeting in session. At this time, if you would stand with me, and Vice Chairman Ronnie Reese will lead us in our invocation, followed by Marty Pennell leading us in our Pledge of Allegiance.
Lord, we come to you today, thanking you for this day and for the many blessings you've given to us. Lord, I pray you to protect us tonight as we have this meeting, and Lord, to guide and protect our employees, and especially our EMS, the EMTs, and those who put themselves on the line for us every day. Pray for our citizens of the county for protection, all the county employees, and Lord, just pray for good things for our county. Guide our thoughts and our decisions as we make decisions tonight to move Alexander County forward. Pray to give each one of us a safe journey back to our homes. In thy name I pray. Amen.
Attention, salute, pledge. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
This time we'll hear from any commissioners with a report. I'd like to add that I'm a member of our Veterans Commission, and to acknowledge that the Veterans Commission is supported by the community. It's supported by Alexander County government, all of our local veterans organizations, and we're having our annual golf tournament on March the 16th. If you're interested, we'd love to have you play. On a side note there too, veteran participation in our local VFW Legion and DAV is declining, but it's declining all across the country, actually pretty much all across the state and country. But if you know anyone who is a veteran, encourage them to become involved in their respective organizations. Also, I'd like to inform you that there is a shortage of foster parents in Alexander County, and there's a meeting, an information meeting on March the 5th if you would be interested in being a foster parent to attend that. Commissioner's Choice Award submissions are now open, and Commissioner Larry Yoder and Manager Rick French attended the North Carolina Legislative Goals Conference here recently, where they joined in with people from across the state to forge an agenda. And at a recent DSS meeting, I did some simple math, and I was really shocked that our social services distributes nearly $5 million a year just in food throughout the county, in food benefits. That was extremely alarming to me. That doesn't take into effect all the other services, but just in food payment vouchers. That's a lot. And when you consider the fact that we have a very low unemployment rate, most major businesses have job openings that they're having trouble filling. So employment shouldn't be hard to find, but as you see, there's just we've got some issues in our county, and one doesn't have to look real hard to see that there's some drug and addiction issues. So what does all that say? I think it says that we need to keep working together to formulate solutions to our problems. Alexander County, since I've lived here, has always been known as a place where people set aside differences and come together to help out each other. So I would urge you to let's all stay together and not let the temperament of national and state politics get in the way of us coming to the table and discussing and helping each other and making Alexander County a better place, and certainly not a divided place. Any other commissioner reports? I would like to, at this time, recommend removal of number 4 on our agenda, conditional use permit Landon Ferguson, Mr. Ferguson. I have a motion to remove this.
Make a motion to remove as stated.
Second.
Second.
Any discussion? Have a vote. All in favor, raise your right hand. All the same likewise. Motion passes. This time we'll have the adoption of our amended agenda. Do I have a motion to adopt the agenda?
Make a motion, we adopt the agenda as stated.
Second.
Any discussion regarding the agenda? All in favor, please raise your right hand. Motion passes. This time we'll have public comment. No one signed up for public comment, so we will move right on to the next item, which is public hearing rezoning 19-1 Stephen Tyler Brown. And John Pilkington, Director of Planning and Development, will present our case.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and good evening to the board, and welcome Commissioner Pennell. I don't think I was at the last meeting, so welcome to the board. Tonight you have a public hearing for rezoning case 19-1 for Mr. Stephen Tyler Brown. This is for property located at 214 S&K Road in Taylorsville. It's for approximately 3 parcels of land. That's approximately 3 acres in size. He's requesting rezoning the property from its current RA20 to highway commercial. He would like to place mini storage units on the property. Due south of this property is a parcel of land that he owns, which you can somewhat see on the map of just the aerial photo that also has mini storage units. I believe that's 188 on the southern part there. This would just be an expansion of that, these mini storage units. The Planning and Zoning Commission met on January 3rd and unanimously recommended that this parcel be rezoned, these 3 parcels be rezoned. They noted that the rezoning request was consistent with the future land use map in the 2008 comprehensive plan and consistent with the goals and policies in the plan, and that the request would not negatively impact the surrounding with regards to, and that should say commercial development, not residential development, I apologize. With that being said, that was also staff's recommendation. So if you have any questions, I'll be happy to try to answer them. I don't know if Mr. Brown is here or, okay. If you have any questions to him as well.
All right, this time we'll have a motion to open the public meeting.
Make a motion to open the public hearing reference to rezoning case 19-1 Stephen Tyler Brown.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor, raise your right hand. All right, we are now in our public meeting regarding this issue. One question, sir. There's currently in the adjacent property, there's currently units there already, correct?
Correct. On the southern, on one of the properties to the south, and let me pull my, so I can see a little bit better. 188, it shows to the south of that is a mini storage unit. Yes, sir.
Okay.
Is the S&K, is that close to Tigtown or Rink Dam or?
It's off of Highway 127.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, thank you.
I would refer, it's where the old, I used to call it the Circus Hall of Cream, because that's going through there. That's where it used to be. I think it was
Okay.
Barbara's Diner. It's that road just past that heading north.
Okay, thank you.
On the right.
What would be the ingress and egress out of that location? Will it just, which road are we coming off?
I will defer to Mr. Brown on that. I would assume S&K, but I'll defer to him.
It'll be Woodring Lane,
Woodring? Okay.
and there's an easement through S&K.
Anyone from the public have any questions or comments regarding this rezoning request? Any further questions? I make a motion that we close the public hearing.
Second that motion.
Any discussion? All in favor of, well, I need a motion for the approval.
We need to close the public hearing first.
Yeah, let's do that.
Okay.
All in favor of closing the public hearing?
Now,
Now, we vote on that issue. So I entertain a motion for the rezoning request.
I make a motion to approve rezoning case 19-1 Stephen Tyler Brown as stated in our report. Okay, I gotta read. Okay. As to approve it as recommended by the Planning and Zoning Commission, who met on January the 3rd, 2019, unanimously approved the rezoning request to be consistent with future land use in the 2008 Comprehensive Plan, and is also consistent with the goals and policies adopted in the plan. The request will not negatively impact the surroundings with regards to residential development.
Have a motion, do we have a second?
Second.
All in favor, raise your right hand. Motion passes. Next, we'll have a public hearing regarding a nuisance case 1807-102. Mr. John Pilkington will share information. At this time, I would ask for a motion to go back into a public hearing regarding this issue.
Make a motion to return to public hearing for nuisance case 1807-102, Kenneth C. Mogray.
Heard the motion, do we have a second?
Second.
All in favor, raise your right hand. Let the public hearing begin.
Thank you again, Mr. Chairman. And I'm going to just read over this entirely just to give the background of the entire thing for benefit of those in the public and the TV. This is a hearing for an abatement of property located at 150 Bridgepoint Lane. It's tax pin number 3715-75-2253. It's approximately 0.42 acres. Mr. Kenneth Mogray obtained the property in 2004, and according to the Alexander County Tax Office, it listed 1955 as the year that the structure was built. On July 12, 2008, a complaint was filed concerning the structure located at 150 Bridgepoint Lane. An inspection was conducted that day by Seth Harris, the zoning administrator, and the property was found in violation of the Alexander County nuisance ordinance due to the roof collapse, multiple holes in the roof, and the inside of the home being open to the elements. You do have pictures, I think, in your file as well as on the screen. The notice of violation was served on the property owner on July 19, 2018. That notice of violation outlined the ordinance violations and gave the owner 30 days to abate the nuisance. Upon the second inspection on September 15th of 2018, the violations present at the initial inspection had not been corrected. Second letter of violation was served on September 29, 2018, and a subsequent communication with Mr. Mogray indicated he was willing to remove the home from the property. At one point, Mr. Mogray indicated he was consulting with contractors for demolition of the home. As of January 24th, the violation had not been remedied, and a demolition permit had not been obtained by Mr. Mogray for removal of the home. He was then notified that there would be a hearing before the county commissioners to determine whether or not this property was a nuisance and would need to be abated by the county. Between that date and this hearing date, Mr. Mogray did come in to the Planning and Inspections Office and receive a demolition permit. And he has hired a contractor and intends to demo the property. I will note that by just obtaining the demolition permit does not put an actual time frame on when he will complete the work. He just has a permit to tear the property, to remove the property and clean it up. Based on the ordinance, if the county commissioners find that there's a nuisance, that the nuisance exists on the subject property, the property owner shall be notified of the conditions constituting the nuisance and shall order a prompt abatement thereof within 20 days of receipt of said order. If the owner fails to abate the nuisance within the 20 days of receipt of the order, the county commissioner shall cause the nuisance to be removed, as authorized by North Carolina General Statutes 160A-193 and the cost incurred by the county in abating or otherwise remedying the nuisance shall be charged to the owner of the property on which the nuisance exists. Staff's recommendation, and this is a recommendation of the zoning enforcement officer, and I do agree with that, is that the structure on the property be deemed a nuisance and thus be removed. So essentially, by him obtaining the demolition permit, it means he is going to start the process. However, that doesn't hold him to a timeline of getting it done. If the commissioners declare this property a nuisance, once he's served with this order, he will have 20 days from the time he receives the order, the signed order, to clean up the property. So if you have any questions, I'll be happy to try to answer them. And there are also several photos I think you have as well in your packet, and on the screen you can see that the home is in quite a state of disrepair at this point. And this complaint originated with a neighboring property owner who was trying to sell their home. The real estate agent had been in contact with us several times over that period of time. A lot of people have looked at that home that was for sale and just had concerns because of the condition of the property, of the Mulgray property, because that's the only access to their property is off of Bridgepoint Lane. So that's where the complaint originated from. I don't know if Mr. Mulgray is here or not to speak on his behalf. He does have a right to contest whether or not.
It does look like there's several homes that are close to it. Is that correct?
That is correct. I mean, it is a dead-end street. I mean, it's really just, it's actually a private drive. The home at 152, which is east of this property, is the property that is for sale.
Okay.
Any further questions for Mr. Pilkington? Anyone in the audience have any questions or comments? Make a motion, we close the public hearing.
Second the motion.
All in favor? Or, is that any discussion? All in favor of closing the public hearing? Raise your right hand. Now entertain a motion to deem this a nuisance as presented and order abatement.
Make a motion that we proceed as our zoning states.
It would be it would actually be a nuisance.
Nuisance.
Yeah, our
Okay,
nuisance
that's our
ordinance, yeah.
Nuisance ordinance to proceed.
Heard the motion, we have a second.
Second.
All in favor, raise your right hand. Motion passes. Next on the agenda, thank you, Mr. Pilkington.
you.
Thank you.
Next on the agenda, we have Paul Tigg to discuss Stony Point Elementary CDBG fair housing. So from Western Piedmont Council of Governments, Community and Economic Development. So thank you, sir, for being with us, and we look forward to hearing what you have to tell us.
Well, good evening, and Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, Manager French, I come before you tonight regarding the Stony Point Elementary CDBG sewer project. Because this is a U.S. Housing and Urban Development funded project, there are elements of the Fair Housing Act that are incorporated into the project requirements. One aspect of this is seeking input from the board regarding suggestions on how to engage with the public in order to raise awareness about the Fair Housing Act. These suggestions will be placed into the minutes in order to provide documentation as required by HUD for the CDB project. We do hope to return next month with a full Fair Housing Act outline to submit for your approval so that we can get this project sent out for bid later this spring. So with that being said, I will turn things back over to you, Mr. Chairman, and the board for any kind of input you might have as to what we could do to help the public learn more about fair housing.
What activities are you seeking input about? Anything, can you give us a
Just
idea?
ideas that might raise awareness. Could we go before, could we have community events or, just think along those lines.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
we could have our public information officer put out some public information about this particular situation.
That would
to
be
try
really
to
good.
raise awareness and also to ask for comments.
All right, so we will have our public information officer do some releases and seek input and ask for comments, and then you'll be back next month?
That's our hope, is that we'll have everything in place, and we can, just from our preliminary look, I don't think this is going to be too complicated a process there. I will make note that on Thursday, March 14th, from 1 to 4 p.m., over at the Western Piedmont Council of Governments, there will be a fair housing workshop in which we will have government officials, realtors, bankers, just a way to bring everybody up to speed about fair housing.
Okay.
Thank you,
Yeah,
sir.
there's a whole lot of things tied to this that I think nobody really thinks about when it gets started. I know Mr. French and I and a couple other people, we spent some time in Winston-Salem for some training on, just getting it started. So I'm sure I would hope to think that the people in Stony Point would welcome getting this sewer project going to the school. So I appreciate your work on it.
It's part of the process, their money, their rules. So,
That's right.
But we hope to come back next month and get everything the way it needs to be.
All right, I'm going to keep it moving. Thank you, sir.
Thank you so
very
much.
Next, we have Mr. Rick French, our county manager, tell us about the Dusty Ridge and Wittenberg access area leases.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Tonight, you have two proposed leases from Duke Energy for Dusty Ridge and Wittenberg access areas. The leases are for 40 years. The leases will be effective November 1st, 2015. That is the date given to us by the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission. The county will currently leases Dusty Ridge, but this will give us a new lease and will allow us to apply for more grants. And if you'll look at their drawing that you have before you, this is Dusty Ridge, and it gives you the layout with the ball fields. It's almost 79 acres of property that we've had since around 2000. Chad, if you could go to the next slide. This slide is of Dusty Ridge, and it gives you some of the proposed uses of Dusty Ridge. There are more trails. There is a area where there's parking. There's an area that could be used for soccer fields. There's also areas, there's bathrooms, and there's disc golf, and a number of other proposed uses for this. This will not be the first part of grant we go after. The first part of grant we'll go after will be for Wittenberg access, and we'll get to that in just a second. But you can see that gives us a number of uses that have sort of tied into a long-term plan that we've had for the park at Dusty Ridge, and it's been very well used. Okay, if you go to the next slide, Chad. This is almost 27 acres at Wittenberg access. Right now you have parking, a fishing pier, boat access, and there's a lot of property there. If you'll go to the next, this is what is being proposed. This is not in concrete, but this is pretty close. We'll have picnic areas. There'll be trails. There'll be a proposed swim beach. There'll be picnic tables, restrooms, and some additional parking. And the idea is to utilize that area. There's been discussion about this for some time. We had met with Duke Energy about 3 years ago to start this conversation. And again, this is about 27 acres. Chad, could you go to the next? This is the upper area where you can see where the trails would be located. There's also a proposed non-project, there's some parking areas there, which would be a pretty big undertaking for us. Once you approve the lease, or if you approve the lease tonight, we'll submit it to Duke Energy. They'll sign and return it to us, and we'll start the process to apply for a PARTIF grant. That's a Parks and Recreation Trust Fund grant. The lease will allow us to, with Duke Energy, will allow us to apply, since we don't own the property. Does anyone have any questions so far?
No, I'd just like to say, I think this is something we've been talking about for a while, and just as you said, these leases were so old, they were almost out. We couldn't get the grants correct with the,
Well, for Dusty Ridge, we had a 40-year lease for that, and once it goes below 25 years, then some of the new requirements for grant funding makes it so we have to go through that process. And so when Duke Energy went through the FERC relicensing, this became something we could talk about, and so both these leases are before you tonight. If you approve them, the chairman will sign them, and we'll submit them to Duke and move forward with the project. We'll give you updates. Both these give us more different kinds of recreation in Alexander County, and I think it's pretty exciting. Now, again, this is not something, if you approve it tonight, we'll see something in a few months. Grants are due May the 1st. We'll probably find out if we're fortunate enough to be funded almost later in the year, October, November, and then we'll probably start the fall and spring. But this will give us time to plan and get prices and get our budgets together and those kinds of things, so.
yeah, I think it'd be a great thing for the county. We'd have a beach in the county, maybe, you know.
We would. One thing, too, we've already talked with our YMCA about contracting with them to provide lifeguards for that area. That's something we'll have to do. So it's just things like that we'll have to follow through with here, so.
Mr. French, I think this is an amazing plan. See a lot of things like this in other places. The most notable one is that beach that they have down on Lake Norman. People will just flock to it. You see some activities that are in some surrounding counties, bike trails and
Right.
disc golf. Just a lot of really good green space type activities that will be a big asset to our citizens in providing recreation that thousands will have the opportunity to enjoy. So,
Yes, sir.
Appreciate your work on this and your passion and your vision on this as well.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And if I did mention, with these leases, we'll also be working with the North Carolina Wildlife Commission. They'll operate and maintain the fishing pier and the parking areas, so we'll have a partner in these. And as soon as we get the leases done, we'll have a meeting with them and start the conversation about as we move forward. So we're really looking forward to it.
Thank you, sir. Well, you've heard the information. I'll entertain a motion to approve the proposed leases at Wittenberg Access and Dusty Ridge.
Make a motion to approve the lease agreements for Dusty Ridge and Wittenberg access areas leases.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Is there any more discussion? All in favor of approval of the lease agreements, please raise your right hand. Motion passes.
Thank you.
This time, Mr. French will share budget ordinance amendments 25 through 29 and the capital budget ordinance, and might add that all of these amendments are granting federal monies with no county expenses, so that's always a good thing. Mr. French?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Budget amendment number 25 is to increase the health department budget for additional state funding for maternal health and child health. Budget amendment number 26 is to increase the library budget for the receipt of federal grant funds passed through the North Carolina Humanities Council for the Let's Talk About It lecture events. Number 27, budget amendment number 27 is to reimburse the Emergency Telephone System Fund for fiscal year 2018 expenditures that should have been paid from the general fund. The transfer is required by the NC 911 Board based on their review of the county's 2018 911 revenue expenditure report. Budget amendment number 28 is to increase the sheriff office budget for the use of federal equitable sheriff funds. These special funds must be used to increase the law enforcement budget. Expenditures will be for the narcotics officers, 2 pistols and 2 rifles. Budget amendment number 29 is to increase the sheriff's office budget to purchase specialized equipment with federal grant funds passed through the North Carolina Department of Public Safety Governor's Crime Commission. Equipment includes a number of items: a hostage negotiation system, infrared cameras, trauma kits, tactical trauma kits, and evidence drying cabinet. Of course, there's no local match for that. And then you have Borealis Compounds, One North Carolina grant project. That is the project budget ordinance, P5, and those funds will come from the North Carolina Department of Commerce, with the county is providing labor to assist them in putting those grant funds together.
Thank you, sir. You've heard the information regarding budget ordinance amendments numbers 25 through 29 and the capital budget ordinance for Borealis. This time I entertain a motion to approve said budget amendments.
Make a motion that we approve.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion?
Well, you touched on it a little bit earlier. We have this many amendments. I guess we look at them and amendments used to really get drilled out, but there's no money coming from us, so that's always a good thing that we can get these things going and get them done without our local monies. That frees it up for something else we want to do with it. So,
Yes, sir.
thank you.
Any further discussion? This time, all in favor of approving the budget amendments, please raise your right hand. Motion passes. Mr. French will now share board appointments and reappointments with us.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Library Board of Trustees reappoint Andrew Ferguson, Amy Bucknam, Don Chumley for 3 years. Equalization and Review Board reappoint Doug Ramsey, David Odom, Linda Barnett, Bobby Norton, Donovan Douglas for 1 year. Health Board appoint Hazel Yoder, reappoint Betty Long for 3 years. Western Piedmont Council of Government Sister Cities Association appoint Carl Lentz 1 year, reappoint David Eisenhower as the alternate. Juvenile Crime Prevention Council, Chastity Hamby for 2 years. Commissioner appointments, Jeff Peel to the Library Board of Trustees and Parks and Recreation Advisory Committee, Ryan Mayberry to the Partnership for Children Board of Directors, and as the Western Piedmont Council of Government Policy Board alternate, Larry Yoder to the Western Piedmont Council of Government TCC, TAC committees, Marty Pennell to the Animal Control Advisory Board, DSS Board, Minimum Housing Committee, and Senior Center Advisory Committee.
You've heard the recommended appointments. Do I have a motion to approve?
Make a motion to approve board appointments as stated.
Have a second.
Second.
Any discussion on such appointments? All in favor of the proposed appointments, raise your right hand. Motion passes. And we'll now have a county manager's report from Mr. French.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. In your information you have in front of you, we have the county sales tax revenue update for the current 2018-2019 budget year. With the regular sales tax for the county, we've collected $1,936,300, which is 41% of the budget collected. It's for month 5 of 12, so it's a little over 41.5% of the year. The sales tax revenue that we budgeted for our regular county sales tax is $4,698,000, and that's 3.8% more than the same time last year. With the new sales tax funds, we have collected $634,165 through January 2019, which is 41%, and it's also collected, and it's 41% of the budget year. We budgeted $1,521,750. It's running just a little bit over 5% more than the same time last year. Also like to report the Alexander County Services Center project is near completion. A number of the items have been finished or in the process of being completed and should be completed in the next couple weeks. So we'll keep you posted on that. And have a few items for closed session, but that's all I have in my report, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, sir. Had your packet and have the consent agenda. This time I entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Make a motion to approve the consent agenda as stated.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion on the consent agenda, which consists of minutes from our last meeting, our work session, and tax release requests and refunds, da-da-da-da-da. No discussion, I'll entertain a vote. All in favor of approval of the consent agenda, please raise your right hand. Motion passes. At this time, we will be adjourned to go into closed session per North Carolina General Statute 143-318.11A, 5 and 6 for contractual and personnel. We will adjourn only to dismiss. Do I have a motion to adjourn the closed session?
Motion to adjourn to closed session.
Second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor? Motion passes.